Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Every Day is Draft Day. I'm your host, Dan Turner. Joining me, as always, Steffi Smalls. What's going on, Steph? How did you enjoy Wild Card Weekend?
I enjoyed it. I am good, first of all. How are you? I can imagine good. You
I'm
look
doing good.
chipper.
I found the Barkley thing. I don't know where it went
I
or how.
I
I
was gonna say I'm glad that that has found its way back onto your wall. I'll get back to wild card week. I wish I hate it. I don't think it was that fun. I mean, it was to a certain extent. Like we had some games that were great, but then also these seventh seed teams. No offense, obviously, not that exciting. Didn't love it. Didn't love that journey for us, but overall, last night was a little upsetting to me. I think that the Cardinals, I would have loved to see them pull it together. It's a shame. I feel like there's some things that obviously they can add, but I don't know if Cliff is holding them back. Why? Kyler wasn't running that much, but these blowout games they're just not as fun.
mhm, agreed. Of the six wild card games, four of them were decided by 15 or more points.
It's ridiculous. I saw something crazy that one of the games, what was it? Something about 9 point. They were all so just like there's a huge difference in all the scores the entire time, or they're just
Mhm.
people are getting pummeled. Like the Steelers really had no business. I think that we all kind of knew that. It was obviously
Yeah.
tempting with Big Ben being his last game, but they had no business being in the playoffs. And then your Eagles, I don't know that I wouldn't say they had no business, but I think that they were set up obviously in a pretty crappy situation.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I'm sure you watched that game very closely. Tampa's D finally kind of looked like itself too, and they haven't done
Mhm.
that in a while. So it was nice. I think what we're getting this weekend though is going to be a much better slate.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the games that we are getting now, that like the teams that probably either didn't deserve to be there or just weren't that good, like the Eagles, are gone. We can see teams that do well against each other, and hopefully we don't get as many blowouts as we had this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, game like the New England Buffalo game, right? It's like everyone needs to calm down. Mac Jones is a rookie. There's only so much you can expect. It's impressive that they have got there. And I think the Bills are showing up finally, kind of how we need them to, where last year we kind of saw, oh God, I don't know if this is going to go over well for them. They're kind of playing to their strengths.
Mhm.
But New England, I think it shows that New England's in a good place and where they can go from here.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a lot of overreaction that's happening because of what happened during the weekend? Like people saying Kyler is like not worthy of being like a good fantasy quarterback or a top fantasy dynasty quarterback anymore. Do you think there's too much of that, or do you think there's something to that going around?
Oh yeah, the first thing I thought today when all this overreaction that's going on, especially with Kyler, right? Kyler still finished as a top QB, as maybe he did not live up to his ADP, but he is still a mobile quarterback that I think the offensive scheme is not playing into. Again, talk about strengths. They're
Hmm.
not helping him in any way. Without Hopkins, too, you start looking at,
Yeah.
you know, do they need to add another wide receiver there? Is there something else? You know, I think that Murray will be absolutely just fine. I mean, we saw him yesterday; he barely even ran. There was nothing designed for him. But throughout the season, he still finished, and I think that's when you start seeing too. There's a big difference in like good for fantasy and good for
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they didn't, run the scheme that highlighted his potential at 100% at all. Especially like when you could see that he was struggling early in the passing game. The fact that they didn't give him more design runs was definitely not to his benefit whatsoever.
Right. And I think also by this point in the season, I was thinking about this earlier, right? They have so
Mhm.
much tape from the entire season of this is how this team does this is how this team does that. Obviously, Cooper Cup is going to be heavily, covered. There's going to be guys that are heavily covered, and then you're going to see the OBJs do very well. You're going to see Zay Jones do very well. So there are guys that because teams have had so much tape on them, they're starting to try to eliminate what has gotten them this far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you should expect to have your primary offense at least, hindered if not take away entirely, and you should be able to adjust to that. I understand, like it's their first playoff games, and even in Philly too, with Jalen, we gave up on the running game way too early. You have to play to what your team is strong against too, but you also need to have a backup plan because the defensive coordinator knows what you're strong with as well. So you have to be able to adjust to
Right.
that. And
Which
it
is
doesn't
kind
seem
of
like
why I'm a little bit surprised that Belichick wasn't able. He's done this so long. I thought there would have been a little bit better of a game plan. But again, you have a rookie QB that I think Belichick does his things the way he does his things. He got
yeah.
them there. It would not surprise me if they make a little bit of a run next year. I think they're doing things the way they should. But you know, teams again period they have more tape and you see that go on through the entire season. So
Mhm.
these teams that have a good receiver core and they have options to spread the field more, I think you see how they're doing now that we have reached this point in the season.
Yeah, I just think in the Patriots instance, just the overall roster wasn't as talented as Bill usually has, especially on
Oh,
defense. And the Bills were on a mission to embarrass them, especially after what happened earlier in the season. So I don't think even as good as of a coach as Belichick is, I mean, he definitely I think overperformed with the kind of roster he had. He was in the playoffs.
oh,
He was in
absolutely.
contention even for the division title late into the
Yeah.
season. But you can't overcome lack of talent, no matter how good of a coach you are. And Buffalo was just on a mission to destroy them. So I mean, it points in a good direction. I think they need more. I think Mac Jones needs more help in the receiver position. I don't
Yeah.
think that you can go with Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar as your best receivers and Kendrick Bourne and expect to compete realistically in the AFC with everyone else that's in there. But overall, I think they're going in a pretty good direction.
Absolutely. I mean, you even look at teams like the Bengals, right? Everyone said, "Oh, maybe they can't necessarily keep it up." Like they look great. It was the game that it was against the Raiders, and again, the Raiders. We can make an argument whether they should have been there or not, but I think the Bengals, regardless of that, still kept up with what they have been doing and why they've been having the success that they have been having, and I think that they've been able to adjust to appropriately
Right.
to their opponent.
Right. Exactly. So the teams that can do that, going into next year, and I think that they can't keep it up is just so. Personally, I think it's just lazy. It's just lazy, like analyzing. Like, there's no like Bengals have the offensive talent to keep it up. Like it's like saying the Cooper Cup can't keep up a good season. Well, he did. He was ridiculous the entire season. There's no
Right.
logical reason with the offensive system that Cincinnati has in place and the pieces that they have that they can't keep up having a good offense. So I think that the fact that people just say, "Oh, they can't keep it up," like why? Why can't they? It's just
Why?
lazy.
Right, exactly. I absolutely agree with that.
All right, well, turning our attention now that wild card weekend is over to the divisional round. Let's go through a couple of, well, not a couple, all the games, and see who's going to be good for this week coming up. So let's start off with the NFC. We'll go to the first game of the week on Saturday. On Saturday, the 49ers at the Green Bay Packers. Who do you like in that game, Steph?
This is an interesting game. I think that Bosa does play a big part. This team reminds me very much of the 49ers team that found themselves in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I think Bosa not being there will allow Green Bay to control this game a little bit more. But again, this is Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers has a chip on his shoulder, and I know that this team always has a tendency to mess up. But this game for Aaron means a lot, and I could see him and Devontae Adams having a huge game. The Packers do have a horrible rush D. It's not great. They've allowed a lot of yards to opposing, running backs. And the threat that the 49ers have is Debo Samuel. So
Mm-hmm.
Debo Samuel is basically you play him all over the field. He can rush the ball, he can receive. It doesn't matter. This guy is so dynamic. He might be the reason why the 49ers are able to pull up an upset against Green Bay.
Right. No, I agree. Definitely, Debo is definitely the centerpiece of uh, what San Francisco wants to do. But that goes back to your earlier point. Like Green Bay knows that. I think their main focus is going to be to limit Debo as much as possible. Just can anyone else on that offense, Kittle and the running backs, Mitchell, can they step up? And if Green Bay is able to limit, I don't think you can stop Debo. I think he's too good for that. If they limit Debo, can they go to other options and still win in Green Bay? And I think they have the running game to do so. I just don't know. It worries me a little bit that they were pretty much cruising towards the end of the Dallas game and then kind of fell apart a little bit. It's really
Mhm.
because Dallas messed up more than they clinched that win at the end there. So it worries me if they that repeats in Green Bay. You really can't give Aaron Rodgers that second chance to come back and beat you. The player I'm looking at in this game more is Alan Lazard. I think that he's going to be huge in this game for Green Bay. I think that obviously the focus is going to be on Devontae Adams, but Lazard has come along quite nicely this season. He's had a really decent season receiver wise, especially as of late when he was like heavily targeted, 5-6 receptions the last couple of games. He's a huge target that dwarfs any cornerback that San Francisco can go out there and play him. So I think it's going to be key, especially in the red zone for Green Bay with Adams getting most of the attention.
Yeah, and I think also, San Francisco's pass D is definitely, their weakness when it comes to their defense. I think that Aaron Rodgers, as we've seen in years past, once he likes a wide receiver, he likes a wide receiver. Like
Mm-hmm.
because he's someone that really controls the game. He takes over as a complete leader. If he decides he wants to do something, he does it. And Lazard has found himself in a place where we saw towards this tail end of the season has been very involved. So I agree with that. That's one of the guys that I definitely wanted to talk about.
Yeah, like you said, like getting the trust of Aaron Rodgers is a tough thing, but once you get it, like he'll depend on you, and he's going to need to depend on Lazard in this game. I think that Lazard is definitely going to show up and be a great benefit to Green Bay winning this game.
And they've had so much time to rest. I mean, the
Yeah.
49ers are really going to have to be able to adjust. Jimmy G is going to be has to be on point, and I think getting Elijah Mitchell involved is very, very important.
Yeah. And they also have to get Kittle more involved because he wasn't involved that much in Dallas whatsoever. And
Because they use him to block a lot.
yeah, which is crazy to me. Like, go get the second tight end to block and put Kittle out. He's definitely he's your best pass catcher besides
Right.
Debo. Like, you got to
Yeah.
put him like in the routes in the middle of the field. You can't have your second best pass catcher in blocking.
Yep. It's crazy because I feel like even those weeks that we did see Kittle get involved, we're like, where has he been this entire season? Like, if it's
Mm-hmm.
not injury, if it's not this, it's because they're using him in, as more of this blocking tight end, another body on the. And I think that they have to find a way to adjust to be able to use him for his true strengths. Not that that's not a strength of his, because that's
Right.
why they are using him as so, but they need to be able to use him as one of their offensive pieces to win this game. I think the 49ers can win this game. It's not, I wouldn't put it past them. But right now, I think that Green Bay is, you know, fundamentally and as a whole, the
Mm-hmm.
better team. But I
Yeah.
think that the 49ers have enough like electric weapons to be able to pull this off.
Mhm. I would feel better about the 49ers' chances if Bosa was playing. The fact that he's not and they lost their best pass rusher, I don't
Yeah.
think they can put the kind of pressure on Rodgers that they're going to need to in order to win this game. I think it might be closer than people are saying. I don't think people are giving 49ers enough credit for beating Dallas. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout either. I think that they have a good enough offense and defensive pieces that are left to keep it somewhat close.
Yeah. And I think the 49ers too, they can't get not that I don't want to say cocky because that sounds ridiculous, but they
Mhm.
can't get comfortable with the score. Like they need to play a full 4 quarters of football, of complementary football to be able to win this game. It's not like you can't there's no taking your foot off the gas, especially against Green Bay.
Mhm.
Dallas ends up hurting themselves, so that was fine. Maybe last, it's not going to fly this week.
No, no, you can't. Depend on Green Bay messing up like Dallas did. Absolutely, especially in Green Bay, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Moving on to the second NFC game, the early game on Sunday, a game that a lot of people are looking forward to: the Rams at the Buccaneers. What do you think about that game?
Um, it's interesting because the Rams last night, up until last night, they looked very good. Their defense was on point. Their O line looked good. They established the crap out of the run, which I think took away from that passing pressure that we've seen Stafford mess up.
Mhm.
Do I think that Tampa has the defense though to make Stafford make mistakes? Yeah, I absolutely do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be. I think that the player to look at in this game is definitely Cam Akers. I just can't believe that he tore his Achilles like 170 days ago, and he came back looking better than when he did when he got hurt. Like it's insane. The fact that they can like depend on him now is a game changer for them because without that threat of the rush, you saw what happened. Stafford was struggling when all the weight was on his shoulders, and now he kind of doesn't need to do that. It helps that you have obviously Cup and Odell is showing up again, so that's a key thing there. I love the Tampa defense. I just think that the injuries on the offensive line, the fact that they're missing so many receivers and running backs, or they're hurt, or they come back hurt, I just don't know that they can. If the Rams, play offense up to their potential, I don't know if Tampa Bay can hang with them with what they have missing. I think it'll be close because you can never count out Brady. Obviously, I think that losing those two linemen, the tackle and the guard, and having to turn around and face Von Miller and Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can say about Brady is once you pressure him, he does make mistakes, just like any quarterback. If he gets rattled, that's a game changer there too.
And I
I
think
think
too, they have one of, as far as these teams that are left go, they have one of the best, if not the best receiving core. You can make an argument probably for the Bengals there too. But
yeah,
that they have weapons, they brought on OBJ. He's doing exactly why they brought him on.
yeah,
If you cover OBJ, you have Van Jefferson. You cover, but if you're able to get to both of them, you have there's so many weapons there
yeah.
to have to cover. And then even Higbee, there's everything
Hmm.
you can imagine. And that's outside of the rushing game and the running backs that they have because Akers, they can use him still on a limited snap count should they choose to do so. And they still have options. So they're in a very, very, very good position. So I think a lot of this does rest on the shoulders of Stafford to continue to play clean football, to continue to make good decisions the way we saw him do last night, and then for the defense to play the way they're playing at the level that we expected prior to the season. This is what everyone talked about, and now they are the Rams defense that we talked about all off season, and I think that really played to a lot of their success.
Yeah, actually, absolutely, 100%. You're absolutely right about that. I think like the game that they played against the Cardinals is the game that we expected, like a full powered, Los Angeles Rams team to play as. If the Rams play like that, they are probably going to the Super Bowl if they
Yeah.
play up to their potential like that. I think for this game, I think that they catch. I mean, Tampa Bay is never going to be weaker than they are right now. I think the Rams catch them in a perfect time with a lot of their offense either hurt or missing, and even some defensive starters, not playing up to 100%. Obviously, I'm never going to count out Brady because it's Brady at home. But I think
Hmm.
if it's any week for the Rams to win, it's going to be this week coming up. So I'm
So I have a
interesting to see.
question. Just
Yes, I
going
have an
off,
answer.
off of that, of
Go
course, I
ahead.
have to interrupt at some point.
Hmm.
It would be weird if I didn't. Um, Tom
I'd be
Brady
concerned. Yes.
next year
Yes.
drafting. What are we doing
Hmm.
with Tom Brady?
Drafting?
Hmm.
Oh, thanks, Joey.
Thanks, Joey.
Um, I consider him a top 10 quarterback. I
Yeah.
can't like we all say like, oh, he's going to fall off, but he just doesn't. Like I can't. There is no rational reason to not have him as a top 10 QB. Like he just
And
performs
I
as
think a
that.
lot of that chatter too was with him and Aaron Rodgers. Like this offseason, you saw them both keep falling, and we kind of just have to realize like some guys you just don't count out. It doesn't matter I don't care if Tom Brady is 60 in redraft. Like I still feel fine taking him,
Yeah,
um, because that he's shown that he can play to that level.
yeah. You know what it is that Brady is boring. That's what it is. It's not. He doesn't have like the hyper of like a
Yeah.
Josh Allen or a Herbert or a Lamar Jackson, whatever. He just produces. Like he is a top 5 QB this year. Like he always performs, and it's just boring. And the fact that you can get him so much later than everyone else, like he was, like you can get him as one of like your last like starting quarterbacks in a 12 team
Hmm.
league. I just can't until he falls off. I have to consider him a top 10. Like it has
Right.
to actually happen for him for me to knock him down at this point. Like until I see that he falls off, he's not going to go down in my rankings.
Yeah. And Cody Smash on Twitter and I talked about this a little bit today. It's like people forget that you can still be effective without being this mobile, crazy, flashy name QB that this next generation has kind of created. Like you can
Yeah,
still succeed in fantasy and not in fantasy not being this super mobile, running all over the place like a psychopath quarterback. Which I think Tom Brady kind of shows what that a little like older I don't want to say that older group of quarterbacks is.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can still, like you said, like the new like generation of QBs is going to be like the ones that can have a little more athleticism than Brady has. But Brady has just such a good football IQ and such a cerebral mind for the game that he can compensate with his non-athleticism with that. He can
Right.
just completely destroy defenses and take them apart, which is why he's always been successful. It helps that he has like the best weapons in the world in tempo with Mike Evans and Godwin, and even if Godwin leaves, honestly, I'd still probably take him really
Yeah.
high. Like at this point, like he's a perennial top 5, top 7 QB, and we're drafting him
Mm-hmm.
like he's a top 20 guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, at this point, unless he completely falls off the map, I'm fine with having him as my starting QB and not worrying about it, honestly.
Definitely. And I wonder how much like us going to the Senior Bowl, like looking at the guys that are going to be there, how much does this bad QB class play into like there's no Mahomes, there's no Murray, there's no Herbert? Like, does that mean that they're necessarily poor QBs, or is it more that they're not fitting the mold of what is expected now?
Right. I think when saying that the QB class is poor is an error, and I've said that before too. Like that's not true. It's just that there isn't like a superstar generational talent QB
Mm-hmm.
so far in this class. So when you say that, people always look for like the huge thing, like Saquon Barkley's, the Trevor Lawrence's, whatever, that guy. They don't have that guy in this class.
Mm-hmm.
They could all be like good QBs. There just isn't like a superstar that everyone loves so far. It doesn't mean that they're all going to be bad or they're all going to suck or something. There just isn't that like wow guy that everyone can like put their head on and drive the class forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
Joe's like, how dare you call that jawline boring? He is. He's a boring passing player. No one wants to draft him, but he's always putting up numbers.
It's like Kirk Cousins. The dude finishes high in fantasy like every freaking year, and everyone hates Kirk Cousins. Like,
No one wants him.
no one wants him, but he's still getting the work done because of what's around him and because he is able to just be consistent. And a lot of times you don't get consistency out of these mobile QBs because they end up getting themselves hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. The mobile QBs have the rushing upside, but they also have the rushing risk. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are much more at risk to get hurt. So it's a give and take. Yeah, you can get the big points, and Jalen Hurts is the perfect like in the NFL, he's
Mm-hmm.
not a great QB, but in fantasy, he's a great QB because of his rushing upside.
Right.
But if he gets hurt, but if he gets hurt, he loses that, then he just sucks as a fantasy QB too.
It's honestly the same, and everyone's gonna get mad, but of course I have to bring up the Giants. But even Daniel Jones, like he was finishing way higher than everyone expected because he
Yeah,
has that rushing upside. Doesn't mean he's a good football quarterback, but a fantasy football quarterback, yeah.
yeah,
Like if he's gonna
mhm.
run the all the time, uh, absolutely he is a
Those
good
points
fantasy
count.
quarterback.
100%. Yeah, but you have to be able to separate the good NFL QB with a good fantasy QB because they're totally different
Right.
things.
Absolutely.
And some people just don't do that, and that's the problem.
Right. I
All
mean,
right.
it happens with every position too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not just exclusively at QB either. It's everywhere.
Right.
All right. Moving on to the AFC, the first game in the slate for the AFC is the Bengals, the Red Hot Bengals at the Titans. What do you think about that game?
Is Henry 100% playing?
Let me take a look.
It appears he was when I last looked. And I think that is a huge game changer for this game. I
Mhm.
think that having Henry, especially like you look at the remaining teams, the Bengals are the most generous when it comes to opposing running backs. And if you add a guy like Henry on top of the game that they already have, I mean, Vrabel, this is a run first team, the most run first team in the entire NFL. If Henry comes back in full force, I just don't know how teams are going to be able to stop him.
Yeah. So what I read right now is that he's not in full contact at practice yet, so it's going to be a game time decision. So it's 50-50 right now whether he plays or not.
Yeah. Because if that is the case, that's huge as
Mhm.
far as the Titans go. I think, again, right? They've gotten to this point. They were the first seed without him. He has not played since week 8 and still was about to break records. He finished RB16. He didn't play since freaking week 8. I mean,
Mhm.
it just shows how dynamic he was, how electric he was during his time there. So I think Derrick Henry plays a very big piece. A credit to the other RBs that they've had. They've still been able to establish a run game. And I think it does. Is a little bit of weight on Tannehill's shoulders, but I think towards the back end of the season he has been playing better. But there's something about these Bengals, and I don't want to get too excited, but there's something about them that is there's a confidence about them. They're another team with a great receiving core. They have a tight end who I actually think I might start looking to attain in some of my leagues. He finished tight end 15. He's going to be a free agent. He looks great.
Mhm.
And I think that he's someone that I don't want to overreact, but quietly throughout the year, he has played very well. And he's playing a part to this. So I think having all these weapons, it's very similar to the Rams in the weapon sense. But then you
Yeah.
have Burrow kind of playing like awesome.
hmm I think it's going to be a close game. I think we're going to have much closer games this weekend than we did this past weekend. I think the most important person, honestly, in this matchup is Joe Burrow. I mean, if
Yeah.
Joe Burrow plays like he played, like he's been playing, I think the Bengals have a great chance of winning this game. I think, like what you said, like what's different about the Bengals is Burrow. That confidence that he brings to the QB position that they really haven't had since Carson Palmer, that he can get it done. And it helps that Jamar Chase is like blowing away the league at this point. He has all those other weapons, and Joe Mixon is finally,
Mm-hmm.
a quality running back that they can count on. And you said like the tight end, even the tight end's getting involved. It really is going to depend on the defense as well. If the defense can slow down, if Derrick Henry plays Derrick Henry and the
Yeah.
rest of the offense, AJ Brown and Julio. But I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a real toss out. But if the Bengals continue to play on offense like they have been playing, they're going to be really tough to stop it.
Yeah. It's really gonna come down to the Bengals run D, and the Titans pass D. Who
Yeah.
can outplay the other one? And I think that even Jamar's value is gonna skyrocket probably every game he plays. I feel like his value goes up, and I don't think that's without reason. But
Mhm.
he is someone that again is going to be. I mean, his value is just getting higher and higher every single
Yeah.
time.
He's already dynasty wide receiver one at this point.
Yeah, literally. And I
Yeah.
think that if they can get out the way they did against the Raiders, have a TD on that opening drive and get hot early, the second that Burrow and Chase have a connection and that chemistry like starts, it's like almost game over.
Yeah, it is. That connection is something. Obviously it's early. They're both very young, but that kind of connection you don't see very often between a quarterback and a receiver. So, but they can continue that.
Right.
It's going to be really special. For their entire careers, and you can't
Oh,
also discount having T Higgins and Tyler Boyd there too because they can also hurt
no.
you even without
Boyd is
Chase. So,
great.
yeah, I love Boyd.
They've got all the weapons, and imagine too, people don't really like. Imagine actually getting an O line,
Yeah.
getting some pieces on the offensive line, like the Chargers did with Rashawn Slater, and what that did to Herbert and his, jump this year, and having that extra time. I mean, Burrow is doing this under ridiculous conditions. He is the most pressured QB in the entire league. He was sacked. If he's not the sack leader, I'm not sure. I mean, he's in the top two.
hmm
He has played behind a horrible O line. I
Yeah.
think the secondary is very underrated over there. I love Jesse Bates. So I think that they have all the things they need to
Yeah.
absolutely win this game. I think what will come down to it is are the Titans able to monopolize on the fact that their run D is not fantastic? And if Derrick Henry's back, how do you slow down Derrick Henry?
Yeah. Exactly. You have to focus on. I mean, he has to be the focal point of the defense because that's who he is.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
we'll see. Uh, Joey says Uzuma thrived when the opposing tight end matchup was weak, which is what I love about Burrow. He leads into his opponent's weaknesses.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. He knows where to go with the ball depending on where the defense is, and he doesn't force it to Chase. I mean, the
right.
fact that Chase is as good as he is with the targets he has is a testament to how talented Chase is as a receiver. But Burrow never forces anything, and that's why they've been good. He doesn't make that many mistakes. He doesn't need to put the ball where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. And I think they're I think the Bengals have shown a little bit better of an ability to adjust. I think that is what has started to take them when they started getting real hot towards the end there too. And I think the Rams were not showing this ability to adjust. And I think that's where the Bengals kind of have this, a little bit of leverage as far as the remaining teams go, is they really have been able to adjust. They lean into their opponent's weaknesses. Burrow is so confident. I've never seen someone with such confidence. And like, he is fantastic. He almost has this weird swag the way that Aaron Rodgers does, but not in a like he's a little bit more personable than Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers was for a very long time before he did, Pat
yeah,
McAfee's show and stuff. But I think those things, build up. They ended a
yeah.
31-year drought. There's a lot to
hmm
like about the Bengals.
It's a very quiet swag. I love that about him.
Yeah, right. He just doesn't care. He's like,
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. All right. So the final game on the slate, which many people think is the game of the week, Josh Allen and the Bills go to Kansas City to face Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Everyone's super excited because the showdown between Allen and Mahomes. What do you think about this game?
I want to hear your opinion first
Okay, my
before I
opinion
get
is
chatty.
my my opinion is it's going to be an offensive light show. I think honestly, I think that both offenses are good enough that they can put up points. I think that the Buffalo defense right now is probably a little bit better than KC, but they are at home, so I mean it's going to be tough. I think that the fact that they've gotten Dawson Knox very involved in Devin Singletary, has given them an actual run game, is what's going to propel them over the Chiefs. I think that Josh Allen doesn't need to be one dimensional. He doesn't need to carry the load in the running game. He can focus on passing and have trust in Singletary that he can get those yards that they need running the ball. I think that with all that, Diggs, Davis, and Beasley, I think that they have a lot more weapons. And the fact that Josh Allen just doesn't give a f about any defense really, and he'll go at them no matter what. I think that kind of like Burrow. I think that kind of swag is what's going to propel them
Yeah.
to a win in this game over Mahomes. Not to say that obviously Mahomes is going to be excellent and everything, but they're this season that you've seen like the kind of blueprint to kind of slow down the Kansas City offense. So if they aren't performing, at tip top condition, it's going to be
hmm
tough for them. It's going to be tough for them to win.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it would be really fun to see Tampa and the Chiefs get knocked out, and we kind of have this game maybe later on that everyone wasn't expecting. But I think that Buffalo, what they have done, talking about adjusting, is the reason why they started losing, was because they had no running game. There was nothing. They weren't using their guys. They didn't get Singletary involved until week 15. Okay, ready? Since week 15,
Mm-hmm.
guess how many touchdowns Singletary's had?
How many touchdowns?
Mm-hmm.
5.
8.
Okay.
I know, but isn't that crazy? This is
Yeah.
insane. Prior to that, he only had 2. So from week 1 up until that point, he only had 2. And fine, we want to talk about, and I think there is something to touchdown dependent, or running backs. We learned that with James Conner, but their ability to get Singletary involved is, I think, is what is really helping them. It takes some pressure off Josh Allen, and you can't. Bottom line is, you need a running game in this league. It might be a pass heavy league, and I get it, and that's fine, and that's where we are, and in the state of where things are in the NFL. It's a pass. I get it. But you need to still have a running game. And I think that Buffalo lacked it entirely. Just like they've kind of lacked having tight end involvement. Now you're starting to see that. I think Singletary is really making a case for himself. Also in a fantasy perspective I don't think we're going to see him go as late as he did last year.
No, I completely agree with that. I think that he definitely played himself into a higher draft position. Absolutely. Because the problem with Singletary, with everyone that plays fantasy, is that he just never got the opportunities with Zach Moss
Yeah.
there, and he didn't perform as well as he needed to, and Josh Allen stealing the carries at the goal line. The fact that, like you said, he scored 8 touchdowns and that you trust him now, in the red zone is going to propel his value way up, especially with the fact that there isn't that many great running back options to begin with uh,
Hmm.
lately. I think that that's going to be it's going to be key if they can continue having that balanced attack and not putting it 100% on Josh Allen's shoulders to carry the passing game and the running game. I think it's going to free him up to make those kind of passing plays where he can beat Kansas City.
Yeah, I think they very much could. This might be we saw last week everyone talking about shootout this, shootout. Like it didn't really happen. I think this is the week we're going to see a lot of shootouts. I think this game especially, I think it's important for Buffalo to get out, get on top early and to make Mahomes nervous because when he gets uncomfortable, that's
Mm-hmm.
when he starts slipping. That's when he starts making mistakes, and you see it. And if you can get him to act like the Mahomes of the beginning of the season, I think the Bills could. I think they could absolutely take this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Bills defense is athletic enough to handle a lot of Buffalo. I mean, the Chiefs offense. So it'll be interesting to see. Although I do find it interesting that Jerick McKinnon had a great game this past week. So it'll be interesting to see how if they continue to play him or switch over to
Yeah,
Darrell Williams in the running back department for the Chiefs.
I will say the Chiefs are very good at finding. They take the talent that they have on their roster and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, how can we shake things up? I mean, we've seen the weirdest stuff at this, not the weirdest, but we're seeing players come forward and one grade it's like Gore that you don't know what you're going to get all the time. And I think that has helped them too. So I think getting Kelsey involved is very important as well. But this is going to be a good game. I think the Chiefs might still pull it off
Yeah.
and I think it'll be heartbreaking to the Bills, but I think it might come to a like experience level of they've been here before, they kind of
Right.
know what to expect. It's a lot of pressure, but boy, would love to see the Bills knock them out.
Absolutely. I would 100% love to see a Bills Bengals AFC Championship game. That would
Oh
be
my
interesting.
gosh, can you imagine? I think Josh
Mhm.
Allen has made a point, and I think he'll continue to do so as long as like he is the QB1. He should be considered even the 101 from, he didn't get the credit he deserved going into drafts last season. Mahomes
Mhm.
still kind of held on to that. And I think he has put on a very good display to why he needs to be getting a little bit more credit when it comes to fantasy.
Right. Until he loses this game and then he's back down to QB10.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm gonna love. At that point, when Josh Allen messes up this game, if he messes up, I won't jinx him, knock on wood. When
Yeah.
or if that does happen, I promise you, I will be taking advantage of that overreaction.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Uh, all right. That's going to do it for today's show. We went through all the games. We made some great points. Steph had some awesome stats. We will be coming back on Thursday for our first Dynasty rookie mock draft of the season. It's already mock draft season. Regular season's been over for 5 minutes, but here we are.
I love it.
Steph, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes. You can find me twice a week with Dan. You can find me in a couple weeks in Alabama at the Senior Bowl. You can find
Wicked.
me on Twitter at Steffi Smalls with 3 L's. Smalls Talks Balls. We'll finally be recording an episode. It's been a little bit. I'm doing a bunch of stuff on TikTok. Just the usual. Nothing uncommon. Everything's on Champions Round.
Mm-hmm. You can find me on Twitter at EagleDanFF. As Steph said, you can find her on Smalls Talks Balls. We're going to be back here twice a week, and then we're going to go have fun in Alabama at the Senior Bowl
Yes.
and have
Love
some shows on there and some great content for you guys there. So check it out. So be sure to check us out on Thursday. I hope everyone has a great day and see you on Thursday.
it. See ya.